Retired General Mark Kimmit, former Assistant Secretary of State. Welcome to TRT Haber.
Merhaba, thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, General Kimmit, in the year 2021, we sat down with you for an interview in the studios, right before the meeting between the President Erdogan and President Biden in Brussels. At this time, the relations between the two countries, the United States and Turkey, was not very good. And later, President Erdogan and President Biden decided to form strategic mechanism meetings, and a shuttle diplomacy between Ankara and Washington have been started, and delegations travel between the two capitals. So now the F-16 deal have been reached. Trade volume is increasing very rapidly. A possible F-35 S-400 deal may be on the table, or solution, let's say. US support to PKK Syrian offshoot terror group YPG is still the case. So what have changed in this period and why? Can you please compare these 3 years?
Well, I think the most important thing is that there is a full recognition by both countries as to the importance of the relationship, even though we had a number of disagreements, issue of Gulen being in Pennsylvania, of course the S-400 challenge, there were just issues that were impeding and interfering with the relationship. Look, I think what has changed more than anything else is a fundamental recognition by this administration of the importance of Turkey, which this administration did not hold at the beginning of their term in office. But they were smart, and they learned and they grew. They sent a wonderful ambassador out there, Jeff Flake, and I think there was a lot of effort on both sides to move these issues along. The real issue, of course, is that of the NATO accession of Sweden. That's where the major issues were, and the fact that that has been resolved, I believe, has in many ways set the relationship back on the path it needs to be.
Given the latest developments in war zones, in world politics, and Turkey's increasing influence and its growing defense industry, is it fair to say that Washington acknowledges the importance of good and strong relations with Ankara?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's stronger because there is one thing this administration has done, which is to reinforce the importance of NATO. And as we look at Russia, and its significant pressures on NATO right now, it's good to see that we've all come together and recognized, again, as we did during the Cold War, the combined and mutual threat that Turkey and the United States sees from Russia.
As I mentioned before, there are good developments between Turkey and the United States in the last 3 years, except the Syria policy of the United States. The US support to terror group YPG is still the case. Turkey is frustrated about one of his closest NATO allies supporting a terror group. So what do you make of it?
Well, this may be the one area that I've disagreed with not only the Trump administration, but the Biden administration and my own Department of Defense. I look at this at a strategic level. In the great course of strategy, do we want to be seen supporting a NATO ally or a terrorist group? I think the answer is obvious, that we don't want to affect the relationship with one of our strongest NATO allies and forsake that relationship to support a terrorist group.
Turkish defense industry grows very rapidly. Turkey started to produce its own fifth-generation fighter jets. The unmanned aircraft vehicles, UAVs, are changing the course of these conflicts around the area. And also Turkey is producing now its UAV carrier and plan to produce an aircraft carrier, as we read on national interests, to become a superpower. So first of all, what do you make of it about the Turkish defense industry?
Well, I think that everybody is in full support of it. If we have learned nothing from the Ukraine war, we have learned that we cannot fight a big war, we, NATO, without additional defense capacity. We're running short of artillery rounds, we're running short of anti-aircraft weapons, we're running short of a number of other weapons systems like artillery barrels. And for Turkey to be a net contributor to the capabilities of NATO, not only in troops, but now in defense production. There may be some defense industries in America that may not appreciate the competition, but NATO as a whole are stronger, made stronger by a strong Turkish defense industry. Our defense industry may see that as competition and may not appreciate losing the market that Turkey represented because it's self-production. But I think militarily, it is clear that NATO is made stronger by Turkish defense industry. And candidly, I'm not worried about competing against Turkish products. I think it's important to have competition because competition makes sure that our friends and allies buy the best product at the best price for the best capability. So for that matter, commercially, I applaud Turkish defense industry for competing on the open market with its defense industry, but more important, because the military capacity it brings online to help NATO.
Yeah. So there will be a critical NATO summit in Washington, D.C., where the alliance born 75 years ago. After Turkey agrees the membership of Sweden and Finland, the alliance gets bigger. So what do you expect from the forthcoming NATO summit in Washington, D.C., and what are the main challenges to the world?
Well, I think after 75 years of NATO, NATO is stronger, it's more viable, it has gone through operations together in Bosnia, in Kosovo, on the waters, and now the assistance that's happening in Ukraine. So I think the 75th anniversary will affirm the importance of NATO and the collective security primarily of Europe. I think it will be a net benefit for Turkey because of what you mentioned earlier, the fact that Turkey can be a net producer of defense equipment that the Ukraine war has shown is so critically needed, and the very fact that you have the largest land army inside of Europe. I think it's an opportunity after 75 years to recognize all of the countries in the NATO alliance and everything they've achieved, but in particular the strongest supporters of NATO, which has been Turkey.
West and NATO see Russia, China, and Iran are the main strategic challenges against the West. How do you see Turkey's role and importance for countering these challenges?
The ability to produce massive amounts of armaments to keep those militaries fighting, to have the strength of the Turkish ground forces and the quantity of Turkish ground forces that can support it. And hopefully, if we can resolve these issues with the S-400, that there will be a complete interoperability between the Turkish military and the United States military and the entire NATO so that we can all fight as one.
Do you think that there will be a solution about the F-35 S-400 issue?
I think that we will be closer to an F-35 decision if first Turkey makes a decision favorable to NATO on the S-400.
How do you describe Turkey's role and importance for the stability in East Mediterranean, Black Sea, Gulf, Middle East, Central Asia, and freedom of navigation and peacemaking in the conflict zones?
I've seen the significant capability of Turkish military to come in and use their military in a peace enforcement, peacekeeping, humanitarian type of operation. That's unique. That's not something the United States military is well trained on, but I was always impressed about how Turkey could integrate those three missions and a fourth mission if necessary, warfighting. So I've appreciated for years and years what the Turkish military can do, and I believe they take that attitude. We can fight war, we can enforce peace, we can keep peace, or we can conduct humanitarian operations. That's a strength that the Turkish military brings into all of those operations that you're talking about, and it's something that candidly you do better than the U.S. military.
Retired General Mark Kimmitt, thank you very much for joining us on TRT Haber.
Thank you, sir.